Hey everybody, welcome back to Cooking with Greg. It's a pleasure to see you guys. Happy Tuesday night. Today is Tuesday, I believe, right? Still missing those days of the week. Anyways, tonight we are working on a broccoli with that garlic butter salmon I mentioned that we were going to be doing. So I have, as always, all my mise en place out. This is going to be quick tonight. It's not going to take a lot of time. We'll probably be done in about 20 to 30 minutes. We're going to start by, I'm going to show you tonight how to actually cut a head of broccoli so that rather than buying the individual florets in the store, you can do it yourself. I have some butter here, garlic. We have some herbs, some dried herbs, some rosemary and thyme. A little bit of honey I'm going to use. I have a lemon and then my lovely salmon and some salt and pepper, all right? So let's get this party rolling. I already have my oven preset. It's preheating right now, so you might hear it beeping a little bit. We're getting it up to 400 degrees, okay? So in the meantime, here's my beautiful head of broccoli, right? Bam! Right there for you. Organic, bought it at the store yesterday, so washed it already, rinsed it off, so it's ready to go. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to take your chef's knife, okay? You're going to lay the broccoli on its head or its side, whichever you want, and on an angle, nice and easy, you're going to cut around that broccoli stem, because obviously this thing's not going to be very edible, but these florets will be. So depending on how big you want, I'll show you in a little bit. You can obviously cut them down a little bit more, but you're just going to go around this head of broccoli like so. Let's make sure everything stays on. Your cutting board doesn't start flying around. There you go. Depending on how big of a stem you want on your floret, you decide where you're going to cut. So you'll see we're getting right through this guy. Super easy, right? I think the first time I tried to cut broccoli, which was a very long time ago when I was a kid or maybe a teenager or even in college, was quite a challenge because I tried to basically cut the top of the head off, which obviously is no good. Here's my beautiful stem that's going to go in my garbage here. And then you're going to have all different sizes, so keep in mind some of these are going to cook at different rates once they're on that pan, but you'll notice that some of these guys are really big, like this guy, right? So I want bite-sized pieces or pieces that are going to work for me once everything is cooked. There's my oven. You just heard that, right? So I'm just going to trim these up a little bit, maybe get some cut down to size. So you can kind of cut through the stems here if you want, depending on, they're not going to be the perfect size floret in the sense of everything's going to be even, unfortunately. I'll just take off the bottom of these. Remember, if you cut too small, I'm also going to just put these on the side. Guy's a nice one, right? I think he's kind of cute. Is broccoli cute? I love broccoli. Really healthy for you, good fiber, a lot of antioxidants and things like that. Tonight's meal is relatively healthy. You'll notice we are using some butter and I'm using a little honey tonight for sweetness. Obviously, you can always omit those things if you want to make your dish even healthier, but you have salmon, which has great omega-3 fatty acids, which are great for reducing inflammation. Fish in general. We're using wild-caught salmon. I prefer wild-caught over farm-raised. It is more expensive, but it's coming right from the water as opposed to swimming with other fish in close confines, and who knows what kind of, bad things are putting in those farming communities, depending on where you're getting your fish from. There are some good farm-raised fish depending on where they're coming from. But you'll have to do your research. So here's what we're going to do. I have a little cooking spray, avocado oil spray. I'm just going to spray down my sheet here, okay, so that these guys don't completely stick. I'm going to put my broccoli towards the back here. We're going to spread them out a little bit. Okay, you'll see what's going on in a little bit. So we're going to get this all put on this lovely tray. And I'm leaving the front portion here for my salmon, okay? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to throw this down and then real quick just rinse my cutting board. You're probably looking at a piece of paper towel that was sitting under my cutting board. So it's a damp piece of paper towel. What that does is it actually prevents my cutting board from slipping when I'm cutting, so it's safer. The other thing you can always do is you can get a cutting board mat, which I have, which also will do the same thing. It's a rubber mat, silicone mat that this guy goes on, completely food safe, all that good stuff, okay? So let's take a look at this beautiful piece of fish, okay, that I bought yesterday at the store. So cooking for one tonight. So I'll show you how to kind of up the ante on this. So normally you probably want to do about a cup to a cup and a half for one piece of salmon. So if you're feeding 4 people, 5 to 6 ounce pieces of salmon, probably closer to 5, probably about the size, the palm of your hand. I have one larger piece. I got about a 6 ounce piece here. And then about a cup to a cup and a half ratio for serving of that broccoli. You'll notice there's probably about 2 to 3 cups here. So if you're feeding a family of 4, you're going to want anywhere from 4 to 6 cups of broccoli so you get that nice healthy greens into your diet. The other thing you can also do is if you want a little bit of a carbohydrate with your food, even though the broccoli does have some carbohydrates in it, you can add some rice to this. I'm just going straight and simple tonight, some veggies and my salmon, okay? So let's take a look at this beautiful piece of salmon right here. Of course, in hindsight, I wanted to show you how to take the skin off, but I completely got flustered at the grocery store, and I had the gentleman behind the counter actually take the skin off for me. So I'm just feeling, he told me all this, the pin bones were already out. Next time I will, I'll show you how to get out pin bones. What I'm going to do is there's this cartilage right down the center. I'm going to take my boning knife right here. I'm just going to take this cartilage out. I don't like that. It makes it a little bit rougher. And remember, you don't need to go completely all the way down and cut the fish in half, but it'll come out nicely. There you go. See that cartilage, that white line right there that runs down it? So that's going to be garbage for us. I'm going to put that knife in the sink. And now let's take a look. Look at that salmon, right? Beautiful piece of wild-caught salmon. We're going to place this guy right on that sheet tray that I had already ready. You can do the sheet tray. I'm just going to wash my hands, friends. You can do that sheet tray with or without aluminum foil. I use some of our friend Mr. or Mrs. Reynolds wrap. I don't know what the correct person is who designed the Reynolds wrap. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to see I've already melted some butter. This is unsalted butter. Can anyone answer me why you want to use unsalted versus salted butter? No? Okay, well, I'll tell you, because we're actually going to season with salt and pepper anyways, and you don't want to over salt your food so that it becomes unedible, or inedible, sorry, I should say. But you also want to make sure you're not overdoing the sodium either. So I'm going to use a little bit of honey for a little bit of sweetness. Now, this is something you can omit. Some people like to use brown sugar. I'm just using about, not even a tablespoon of, or a teaspoon rather, I should say, of honey, okay? Just to sweeten it up a little bit, I'm going to mix this up just like so. Very nice. Hands are sticking here because of the honey. I've already melted that butter, so it's a little bit warm, so it will help that honey kind of mix in. And then from there, we're going to start to add our seasonings now, or our herbs. Now, why are we using dry? Number one is when you bake something, you don't want to use fresh herbs at the beginning because they're going to basically cook out all those beautiful oils and things like that, and they're going to get really bitter to taste. So we're going to use dry, but we're going to actually finish off our dish with some fresh sage tonight. So we'll go over that in a little bit. But in the meantime, I'm using rosemary and thyme. Pair really well with fish. Rosemary is a little bit more earthy. Thyme's pretty earthy as well. Just a nice contrast with the fish. The other thing to note, friends, is that dried spices, if you look in your cabinet, they have an expiration date. Most dried spices should be lasting no longer than 1 year in your cabinet. So if you have spices that you've had for like 20 years, you might want to get rid of them, okay? Because they lose their flavor and their intensity. The other thing is dried spices, when you're configuring how much you should use versus fresh herbs, or sorry, herbs we're talking about, not spices. Fresh herbs versus dry herbs. Dry herbs are much more intense, so you're going to want to use about a 1 to 1.5 ratio greater if you're using fresh herbs, okay? So for this, we're going to use about a quarter, maybe a little bit less, quarter of a teaspoon. Probably just dip this guy in there. So just about a little bit, about quarter, get a little bit more, teaspoon of the thyme, okay? Let's get that on top. And then we will grab our dried rosemary. I love rosemary. I love putting rosemary on potatoes and things like that. So same kind of ratio there, okay? I'm gonna use a little less of the rosemary just because it is a little more intense in flavor. So if you only had fresh herbs, my recommendation would be, this is gonna be about a 10-minute dish, 10 to 15-minute dish to cook in the oven. My recommendation for you would be to add it probably in about the last 3 to 5 minutes, or garnish it on the top, and finish with garnishing on the top. My friend Sage that we're using tonight actually is a little bit more robust in the sense of it'll hold up longer to a longer cooking time, but we're not using that until the end of the dish. So here's my mixture, right? Here's my herb mixture that we're gonna end up kind of drizzling over everything. I have my garlic that I've already minced up for you. There you go. So this, I did a lot of it, so I'm not necessarily going to use it on the broccoli. I might use a little bit, but we're going to put this onto the fish, okay? We're going to massage this into the fish right here. Hopefully you guys can see me over there. Yeah. Depending on what your flavor intensity or how much garlic you like. Garlic's really good for you. I think we talked about it last time when we were cooking some other stuff. Don't forget to get that little middle area that we took out, that kind of cartilage, if you will. And then, of course, if you want, you can just finish by drizzling right around the broccoli. We'll add it, no big deal tonight. And the other thing is this broccoli, because it's not touching the fish, I know some people get freaked out because, oh no, it's fish. It's going to be fishy when it's done and things like that. Don't worry. Because it's not going to touch it, okay? You should be pretty good, and if you're super concerned, then you'll eat the pieces today that's closer to the fish, okay? So here's what we're going to do from now. Now we have this mixture. We're going to start to drizzle it all over our food. So the salmon, okay? Salmon should get more of it, hopefully. And then you want to make sure you get your broccoli florets. And notice I'm just kind of sprinkling it on. You can dump it, but it's easier for me to control so that I didn't use all of it. So if you're making this for 4 people or so, I used about 2 tablespoons of butter in this mixture. You're probably going to want to go somewhere about 4 to 6 tablespoons. I know it sounds like a lot, but just think about it. You're putting it on 4 pieces of fish and about 4 to 6 cups of broccoli. Remember, broccoli is a great vegetable, but you can use other things. You can use broccolini, version of broccoli, obviously. I want to get all this on there. There we go. And then you can use cauliflower if you want. You can use Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts, the flavor combination might be a little interesting though, because they do tend to get a little overpowering at times. So does cauliflower. Broccoli's kind of mild, right? You can roast some tomatoes here, whatever you want. Tomatoes will be really good. So we've got all that set up. So what's next? We're going to go salt and pepper now. So salt. So remember what we talked about. We're not using salted butter. This is unsalted butter because you get to control the amount of salt. So we're going to drizzle the salt kind of in a east-west or north-south pattern depending on how your fish is laid out, because that will mean that you're covering it. Or don't forget the broccoli, because everything needs to get seasoned here, right? Okay. And then we're going to hit it with some pepper. Same thing, north to south, east to west. We're going east to west tonight here. Just a little bit more. There you go. Remember, pepper is kind of intense for some people, so you decide how much you want to use. Don't forget here. I'm trying to keep it low because I don't want to make a complete mess on my stove, which I do all the time, but that's what cleaning's for, right? All right, so what's next? Boom. Here's a lemon. So we're going to cut a lemon in half. I've already washed it, so don't worry. Already washed it. And we're going to juice everything, okay? We're going to do a little juice action. Wax on, wax off. So, boom. It's going to add some nice acidity to this. There we go. It also gives some moisture to the broccoli as it cooks in the oven. So, and then we have this other half that we're going to reserve for later when the fish comes out. So we're ready to put this guy into the oven right now. So I'm going to grab a little pot holder because this has been sitting on that. It's been sitting on the stove as the stove's been heating up, so I don't want to burn myself. So let's take a look. there's what you got. It's a 1-sheet pan dinner. Obviously, if you're feeding 2 people, you can cut that guy in half. I might save half of that for tomorrow for lunch, or maybe make it with some eggs and have some salmon and eggs for breakfast. And then we're gonna pop this guy into the oven and let it just do its thing, okay? I actually didn't need my whisk, but I had one with me just in case. So what's gonna happen while you're doing that? All right, we're gonna grab out our our sage, and we're gonna get rocking. Cutting board's clean. Remember, I didn't cut the fish on it. Basically, the fish was in its paper, totally clean. But if you don't trust that, flip on over that cutting board, right? I'll be right back, hold on. So, here's some fresh sage, already pre-packaged. I got some organic sage. Sage is beautiful. Has these nice big kind of textured leaves. Smells great. Sage is a great combination with fish. Salmon, you can also use dill. Dill is really good. So, pardon me. Let me wash my hands as I coughed into my hand. Don't want to contaminate my food if someone else was eating it. It is just me right now on this tonight. So, here's what we're gonna do. I think for that 1 piece of salmon, I think two leaves are gonna, let's do 3 leaves, actually. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna throw this back in the fridge. Remember, so this can be added towards the end of cooking. Sage can be a little bit more robust, as I told you, that it can actually be put in to cook with everything. However, not right away, especially something that's gonna take 15 minutes. So I'm gonna take these stems off, or let's call them tails tonight, right? All right, so there's a few things. We can chop it up, but I'm gonna chiffonade this and then do a little bit of a chop. Remember, you don't wanna over chop your herbs, because what you do is you end up releasing all those oils and they end up staying on your cutting board. So what we're gonna do, if you're watching me here, okay, you see those leaves, they're stacked on top of each other. I'm gonna roll them up. You can do this with basil. It's really good, especially when you're making like a homemade tomato sauce. You'll do it with basil, and then it's gonna be like this small little, I want to be politically correct, so I don't want to say anything bad, but use your imagination. What is this? But beautiful rolled up piece of 3 pieces of sage. We can either cut this way, but I'm going to go basically where the curls are, where those ribbons are, if you will. And we're going to just cut. Keep it nice. Remember, keep that claw grip. And you're going to get these beautiful shreds. Okay, and this last guy, watch your fingers. See, look at that. See those little strings? And then basically all I'm going to do is a little bit of a chop here. You can use the chiffonade, if you will. Otherwise, just a little bit of chop. But if you look at my cutting board, there's no grain on there. Everything can move. If you see people chopping, like you watch these people do this the whole time, all they're doing is they're taking all those oils and flavors out and they're putting it on their cutting board. So it's not going to be in the food. Other than that, so what's going to happen is after about another, 10 minutes or so, maybe a little less, this whole dish is going to come out. I'm going to plate it. I'm going to garnish it. I'm going to squeeze a little lemon, garnish it with a little bit of the chiffonade of sage, and that's it. That's how quick that meal is. We've been talking together, I don't know now, about 15, 16 minutes. This dish is less than 30 minutes. If you added rice, if you were making your rice at the same time, everything will be ready in 30 minutes. Family can eat nice healthy dinner. Maybe use a whole grain rice, right? So that it's still got its germ intact and all that other great healthy benefits for you. So those whole grains, right, are really good for our diet. So if you wanted to make this a little more healthy, obviously you can omit the sweetened part of it, the honey, the brown sugar, whatever you're putting in. The other thing you can do is if you don't want to use butter, there's butter alternatives like vegan butter. If you're worried about the fat content, because the fish does have a high content of fat, but it's healthy fat. It's those omega-3 fatty acids, which are really good, especially if you're fighting any sort of, autoimmune conditions. I like to eat salmon. Fish is really good for that. But like we say with everything in moderation, right? So I will finish by taking a picture of this when it's done on a plate for you. This way you don't have to hang out for the next 10 minutes. I don't have a studio where I have two ovens where one goes in, I pop the other out, and then it's like, bam, everything's done magic, right? This is real life cooking at home during the quarantine. So if you have any questions for me, if you need any help, let me know. Otherwise, have a great night. Enjoy your dinner. I will post a picture of this on Instagram, on the Insta story, so check in. And then coming up later, probably either tomorrow or Thursday this week, depending on my availability, is we're going to do some turkey stuffed peppers. Okay, some beautiful stuffed peppers with ground turkey, some rice, and some other great flavorful stuff. So other than that, thanks for joining Cooking with Greg. Happy eating. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your night. Peace out.